Okay, welcome everyone. Everything you need to know about Unity in 15 minutes, but we're afraid to ask. So, what's the story? Well, I don't know anybody here has used Unity before. Quick show of hands? Not bad. Great. So, how did it come about? Well, these three guys on the left, they weren't so great at making games, but whilst they were in the process of trying to make a game called Gooball, they stumbled across a development environment that they'd created called Unity. And that's Joachim, Nick, and David Helgeson. And as part of that mission to make a game that kind of failed, they made a game engine and development environment which we now know as Unity. And kind of the mission to kind of democratize game development was born. So bringing game development technology to the masses. This guy on the right, who wasn't so bad at making games, but couldn't get his hands on the technology required to very quickly iterate on prototypes when I was working at Disney BlackRock Studios. So what did I do? I brought Unity in as a test bed to try and very quickly build games and game prototypes. I was a technical artist on console and PC games for many years, and our crowning glory was probably Split Second, which was a kind of arcade racing game with Michael Bay explosions everywhere. It was good fun, it was well reviewed. Sadly, it came out on the same day as Red Dead Redemption, and it cost about $50 million to make. So Disney decided they weren't going to recoup all those costs. So right after I came back from a rather expensive holiday, they closed the studio. My redemption, luckily, was that Unity opened up a support office in Brighton, where my games development career was ongoing at that stage. And so I jumped onto the other side of the fence to help people make games with Unity and their support team. So jump forward a few years, and Unity is the most widely used real-time 3D development platform. I'm not sure who did that graphic on the left, but Unity is the big blue bit of the pie, and other is the smaller bit of the pie. I've got no idea where those stats came from. I've been assured that they're accurate to a percentage. Likewise, these are some more stats and figures. 3 billion devices are reached by Made with Unity products, and 29 billion installs of Made with Unity experiences in the last 12 months. It's quite a phenomenal number. I'm guessing there's a lot of repetitive games being reinstalled over and over again, but it's still quite a lot to behold. So 45% of the top 1,000 mobile games are powered with Unity, and 50% of all new mobile games, I don't know why we've got both those stats, they're a bit close really, 60% of all AR/VR content powered by Unity. So what is it? Well, it's basically an editor for interactive stuff. So in a nutshell, you have a game view and a scene view and a play button, which means that everything you do, you can test in real time on your build device, but also on your actual desktop that you might be building your project on. You have an inspector on the right for editing, adding components and setting parameters on those game objects that you might have in your scene. And a hierarchy, I say on the left, this is obviously an artist's view. The coder view looks very different. You can set the layouts however you like. There's lots of different ways to do it. Some of them really hurt my eyes. This one's not too bad. You're also seeing the light skin, which is the lighter coloured version of Unity. When you get Pro, you get the ability to go dark. I don't know why that is the case. It's very bizarre to me. It's slightly easier to see on this screen. And then you have a project view where you can, it's a bit like a Windows Explorer really, or a Finder. Any of your assets you can drag straight into the project and it will import them and populate. And then your hierarchy on the left up there is used to assemble your scene. So it's essentially a tool for creators, programmers who can, if I can read it, create behaviors and advanced game logic. They can write scriptable render pipelines and create their own build pipelines. Designers can create levels, design characters, controllers and behaviors, create stories and narratives, and also they can, what does it say? Oh, I'm just trying to read it. Find assets and prototype gameplay. So that's a sort of reference to the asset store. Whereas if you don't have time to build all your own models and import them, you can buy some, or you can get some for free that Unity provide with. Artists can import their assets and round-trip them with popular digital content creation tools like Max and Maya and Modo. And they can build assets with ProBuilder, which is our built-in modelling tool. After we acquired ProBuilder and ProGrids, that's all thrown into the mix. And you can create lighting effects, particles, audio, animate your characters and assets. So there's a hell of a lot of stuff you can do. But essentially it's an engine, and it's an engine that ports to all of those platforms. And that's probably the exciting and insanely powerful part of it all, in that you can work with one project and port to all. I won't say instantly, right? There's considerations for all of those, user interface considerations, memory, all those kind of things, but it is set up to build to those platforms. And pause in the middle of the presentation. There we go. So I alluded to the asset store earlier. This is the place where you can buy, download for free, or even sell your assets. If you're an artist, a scripter, whatever you do, if you want to make a bit of money back from your development costs in a certain project, you could put your assets on the asset store if they might be useful to other people. So it's an environment to buy, sell, exchange, and download things that you might need to plug into Unity. So why should you make stuff with Unity? Well, it's basically like a massive sweet shop. There's lots of things going on, great tools for artists, programmers. Everything's extensible and scriptable. There's probably a toy box GIF somewhere, but this is sadly the only GIF in my presentation today. For the more technical descriptions, we've recently spent a lot of time and effort to invest in our data-oriented tech stack. And that is basically a move towards away from object-oriented design to data-oriented design. And that new philosophy requires a programming language that we call the entity component system. We work with that it's derived from C#, but it basically combines with the Burst compiler and our C#'s job system to give you very performant by default tech stack. It requires a rethinking of how you do things. We're providing a whole load of resources to help people move in that direction. But as I say, high performance, multi-threaded, scalable, and optimized. Next level rendering, so we're working with film companies as well as AAA game studios and indie developers, just the whole wide range, to bring them our scriptable render pipeline, which means you can take from one of two great templates. We've got the high definition render pipeline and the universal one, which scales to all platforms, including mobile, or you can write your own. You can copy and paste them and change some parameters for certain platforms, or you can completely script a render pipeline to suit what you need. We've got elements for connected games, obviously. Another important element, so we're bringing leaderboards, matchmaking, along with real-time multiplayer networking stack into play. There's lots of stuff happening with that right now, especially with dots. But why we could go on, it's probably time to see some of the content that creators have built using the platform and see if my video connection is working. Shall I get some audio? Yeah, somebody's plugged it in. Thank you very much. I beg to differ. So Unity isn't just games engine. It's a scalable development environment that outputs projects in verticals like augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. That's the Lego Playground example there. I have hundreds of examples, but I've narrowed it down to one because I know it's a lightning talk. We do things in the automotive, transportation and manufacturing industries. So that includes like driverless cars, but also simulations, visual renderings of prototype cars and automotive experiences. And we also do quite a lot of architecture, engineering, construction, industrial sectors. So lots of people are using Unity to do a whole bunch of different things. This particular example is actually our London office, rendered in our HD render pipeline. It looks a bit like a sky cube there, but I'm just trying to remember if the video. So it kind of is done to look a bit like, oh, we've put one of those 360 videos in a room to show what this office looks like. But this is actually in Unity, so you can run around this experience on a pretty standard desktop. Here we go. Here's an example of it moving. Change the time of day, all that kind of stuff. So quite a palette of tools for architects and designers to work with, to understand. And if you actually go to the Unity London office now, it's very disappointing to see that the lovingly rendered croissants are not there in the kitchen anymore. We'll get to those in a minute. I, for one, was starving, and it turned out they just had a few crumbs left over. Media and entertainment, that's another way of saying film and TV, I suppose. We've also partnered with our Spotlight team to create short movies to try and push the technology that Unity brings in our render pipeline, things like the fur shader here. We've worked with lots of white papers that we've submitted to SIGGRAPH, however you say it. So what's new? Well, every year we run get-togethers of Unity users in different places around the world. There's 2 or 3 that tend to happen. And in Europe this year, it was held in Copenhagen, which was a bit of a homecoming because Unity was started in Copenhagen with a group of developers, expanded into the States, but also with development in Lithuania, in the UK, and now there's, I think, 28 different offices scattered around, including the York office of one, which is me. How I got here is another story that you have to buy me a few beers and I'll tell you all about it. So what is new? Well, at those Unite gatherings, we tend to showcase what's coming, what's available now, and all the exciting things that happen. So Dots is very much in the forefront, and Project Tiny, which is an insanely tiny executable for both mobile and web targets, which is based on Dots. And that's to strip out all of the dependencies and clutter that you don't need for a particular application and build a Unity executable which only has the stuff that you need. So that's lots of stuff happening in that arena at the moment. Unity Live Link was demoed, where people were interactively chucking new materials and parameters into their game in runtime. So you could change some physics parameters or colors and materials. It sounds unbelievable. There are lots of videos to show this going on. I implore you to Google Unite Copenhagen, YouTube, whatever, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. You can get nice nitty little digests of all those. Unity Simulation, where we've moved into the cloud-based simulation space so that you can have thousands of cores doing things over a very short space of time that would take a very long time otherwise to simulate, 30 seconds. And Unity Reflect for BIM and architecture, our 2D render pipeline, our HD render pipeline, and the now renamed Universal Render Pipeline, which is your ability to bring to any of those platforms, including mobile. How much is it? Personal edition is free. There are Plus and Pro subscription models and support. Where can I find stuff? Let me Google that for you. Seriously, it's very well optimized for Google, just about anything Unity related. But there's a Learn site on our website. There's a Learn Premium with a whole load of stuff. That's unlocked when you've got a Plus or a Pro subscription. And then the final page of all the useful stuff. Please take a picture of that if you need. If you've just woken up, that's the only important slide you need for my presentation. Thank you very much.